So, hi all of you. I'm Dr. Professor Lata, Professor for the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology Nursing and Vice Principal from Madras Medical Mission College of Nursing. So, today's the topic of discussion would be on prevention, identification, and management of eclampsia. The learning objectives at the end of the session, we will be learning about the various terms and hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, eclampsia and its management, the supportive care given for a woman with eclampsia during a fit, the dose, the route of administration of injection magnesium sulfate for the management of preeclampsia and eclampsia. So as we know, the preeclampsia or eclampsia is the second leading cause of maternal mortality globally as well as in India. This eclampsia can be prevented and managed by recording and monitoring of blood pressure, urine protein examination of all laboring women, and timely identification of danger sites and giving injection magnesium sulfate in all mothers having preeclampsia and eclampsia. If you just take the definitions of certain hypertensive disorders of pregnancy. So what is hypertension? When the mothers have a blood pressure more than 140 by 90 mm of Hg on two consecutive readings, 4 hours apart, we confirm that as an hypertension. What is chronic hypertension? When hypertension is identified even earlier before the 20 weeks of pregnancy, it is chronic hypertension. When hypertension is diagnosed after 20 weeks, we call that as PIH. It is called as pregnancy-induced hypertension. And preeclampsia is where the mothers have the BP more than 140 by 90 mm of Hg but less than 160 by 110 mm of Hg, along with proteinuria trace of 1 plus and 2 along with edema. And now edema is not an important criteria to confirm a preeclampsia. A severe preeclampsia is where if the clients have BP for more than 160 by 110 with proteinuria of 3 plus and 4 plus, and they always present with the symptoms, any symptoms of headache, blurring of vision, epigastric pain or oliguria, and abnormal edema over the face, hands, and edema and vulva will be present. And with severe preeclamptic cases, if it is complicated with convulsions and BP more than 140 by 90 and proteinuria more than the trace, then it is diagnosed as eclampsia. So note, convulsions in pregnancy, labor and postpartum should be period considered as eclampsia unless proved otherwise. So to study about eclampsia in detail, so Vera Duas coined the term called eclampsia and is derived from a Greek word meaning like a flash of lightning. So eclampsia is defined as a new onset of a grand mal seizure activity of a mother with during pregnancy or a postpartum period. We define that as an eclampsia. Preeclampsia, when complicated with generalized tonic-clonic seizures or a coma, then we call that as an eclampsia. In most cases, over 80%, the disease is always precipitated or preceded by the features of severe preeclampsia. If you take the etiology, the exact etiology of eclampsia is not known, but more common if the mothers have got a previous hypertensive disease. A reading of BP is taken twice interval of 6 hours. There is a failure of placentation in case the mothers may have an eclampsia, abnormal lipid metabolism, decreased calcium in the diet. So others include if the clients are using alcohol, they have coarctation of aorta, use of other drugs, endocrine disease, pregnancy-induced hypertension and renal disease. So all these can mimic the incidence of eclampsia for the mothers during pregnancy and labor. So eclampsia occurs in 10% of all pregnancy, and India accounts about 20% of the world's total maternal mortality rate. Next to a hemorrhage is preeclampsia and eclampsia are the direct cause. It is more common, you could see this eclampsia in primary gravid mothers, and is considered to be the third leading cause of maternal mortality after thromboembolism and non-obstetrical injury. Maternal diastolic pressure, when it is more than 110, are associated with the increase of placental abruption and fetal growth retardation. So eclampsia usually results, if it is not controlled, it leads to death in an advanced stage. If you take the cause of convulsions, it is caused basically because of anoxia. It leads to a cerebral irritation where the mother goes for convulsions and cerebral dysarrhythmia. So when there is an anoxia, when the supply of oxygen to the cerebral vessels occurs because of the spasm. The cerebral vascular resistance is increased and thereby the cerebral oxygen consumption falls down, leading to anoxia. Provided there is going to be an anoxia for a longer time, it leads to irritation and cerebral edema, and thereby it increases the anoxia and edema, causing cerebral dysarrhythmia. If you take the causes of convulsion, seizures in the eclamptic clients last for about 60 to 70 seconds. It is about to be a tonic-clonic type, later goes into a coma. Throughout the seizures, diaphragm is fixed, the breathing doesn't occur. The first convulsions is forerunner of another and maybe one or two in mild case to continuous results in status eclampticus, where the mothers have repeated episodes of convulsions. So in the antepartum period, the onset of percentage of occurring eclampsia is more high. So it occurs more before the onset of labor. As soon as the labor starts, soon after, and at times it is impossible to differentiate it from an intrapartum ones or an antepartum ones. So intrapartum period, the instance of eclampsia is 30%, and it usually occurs if it is going to be occurring for the first time during labor. Otherwise, the mother, those who have an instance of eclampsia in the antepartum, have an instance of having convulsions in the intranatal partum also. So postpartum, the incidence is 20%. Usually within the first 48 hours of the delivery, the mothers may have eclampsia. The fits occurs after 48 hours, but less than 4 weeks after delivery is accepted as a late postpartum eclampsia. If you take the clinical features of eclampsia, the eclamptic fits are epileptiform and consists of 4 stages. So it has a premonitory stage where the patient becomes unconscious. There is twitching of muscles of face, tongue and limbs. Eyeballs are turned to one side and becomes fixed. So this stage of premonitory stage lasts for about 30 seconds. Tonic stage is the stage where the whole body goes into spasm called a trunk opisthotonus. Limbs are flexed, hands are clenched, respiration ceases, the tongue protrudes between the teeth, sinuses appears, eyeballs becomes fixed, and this stage will last for about 30 seconds. The third stage is called the clonic stage, where all the voluntary muscles undergo alternative contraction and retraction. There is a twitching in the face. Then it involves one side of the extremities from the face, and ultimately the whole body will be involved in the convulsion. There may be biting of tongue during this stage. Breathing becomes very strenuous here. Blood-stained frothy secretions fills the mouth. Sinuses gradually disappears here in this stage, and this stage lasts for about 1 to 4 minutes. The last stage is called as the stage of coma. So following the fit, the patient passes or goes into a stage of coma, which may be last for a brief period, or another deep coma persistent and another convulsion starts to occur. On occasion, the patient appears to be in a very confused state. Following the fit, fails to remember what has happened to her, and rarely the coma occurs with a prior convulsion. The fits are usually multiple, so it may occur at varying intervals, and if it is going to occur at varying intervals and continuously, it is going to be called or referred as status eclampticus. Following the convulsions, temperature rises, pulse and respiration rates will be increased, and blood pressure is also high. The urine output will be markedly diminished, and proteinuria will be very much pronounced, and blood uric acid also is raised in the clients after the coma. The other clinical features which may be associated with eclampsia includes headache, visual disturbance, epigastric pain, edema, high blood pressure, fluid retention, reflexes, increased reflexes, fundal level less than appropriate date. The complication includes why the fundus is less than the appropriate date is because of the IUGR, that's a complication expected on the fetus. The complications of the mother include tongue biting, head trauma, because there is a chance of fall, aspiration, broken bones, permanent CNS damage, intracranial hemorrhage, renal failure, death, injuries due to falling from the bed, disturbed vision, psychosis and shock. Acute renal failure can be also a complication. Ventricular failure, pneumonia, adult respiratory death syndrome, pulmonary edema and hepatic necrosis. Mothers with eclampsia may also induce complications on the neonates and fetus. So it may be the babies may be sometimes stillborn or died after the birth immediately, prematurity. There may be placental infarction. There is no supply to the placenta and thereby the placenta suffers infarction. Abruptio placenta, there may be a sudden suppression of the placenta from the site. Fetal hypoxia, as it is basically concerned with the vasospasm. The fetus also has gotten hypoxia and aspiration. And since there is low blood supply, the baby suffers with IUGR and sepsis. So this is a tongue bite which you could commonly see after a mother with a fit. Intracranial hemorrhage because of intense vasospasm. Premature infants and IUGR babies. Abruptio placenta, separation of the placenta from the site. Intrauterine growth retardation, babies will have a stunted growth because of less blood supply, and fetal hypoxia leading to babies even death at the case where we don't manage it appropriately. So management is it's concentrated more of what the aim of management is: prediction and prevention, first aid treatment, general management, specific management, and the obstacle management. The aim of management is to arrest the convulsions as it is occurring, maintain a pattern airway, breathing and circulation. Oxygen should be administered to the mothers at the rate of 8 to 10 liters per minute. Try to terminate the pregnancy in order to safeguard the mother. Ventilatory support, prevention of complication. Hemodynamically, you have to make the mother stable. Prevention of life-threatening situation should be the aim of management, and a good postpartum care with medicines and regular follow-up care. How should you predict and prevent? In major of cases, eclampsia is preceded always with a pre-eclampsia. So thus the prevention of eclampsia most relies on the management which is given in the pre-eclamptic state itself. Eclampsia may present in an atypical way, hence it is at times difficult to even predict. It is not essentially the mother always have to go for a convulsions and then coma. So sometimes a small jittery movements also may present with eclampsia. So it presents with in atypical way. So when the mother has got a pre-eclampsia, the use of antihypertensive drugs, anticonvulsant therapy, and timely deliveries are the important steps that we need to consider to manage the mothers with eclampsia. Close monitoring during labor and 24 hours of postpartum is really important to prevent the mothers from eclampsia. Unfortunately, 30 to 85% of cases of eclampsia remain unpreventable. So here, to reduce the risk of eclampsia, the use of magnesium sulfate is highly considered. The first aid treatment outside the hospital, what we can give is the patient either at a home or in the health center should be shifted urgently to the tertiary referral care hospital because there is no place of continuing treatment at home. So they require at most sophisticated measures of tertiary level of care when the mothers have convulsions. So transport of an eclamptic patient to a tertiary care center is really very important and without delay it should happen. Such patients need neonatal and obstetrical intensive care management and hence a good tertiary level care for both mother and baby ideally have to be selected. So what are the important steps that we have to consider while transporting the mothers to the patient to the hospital? All maternal records and detailed summary should be sent with the patient. BP should be established and convulsion should be arrested. Drugs should give magnesium sulfate, labetalol, diuretics and diazepam can be considered. A medical trained personnel and a trained midwife should accompany the mother in the ambulance so that in case if she develops any injury or complications, they will be able to manage them. And what is the supportive care that we have to give to the mother? So since as we know she has got a coma and convulsions, so aim is that we need to prevent a serious maternal injury from the fall, to prevent aspiration because from the tongue flowing back, and to maintain the airway and ensure oxygenation. So patients, if they are in the bed, they should be in the rail cot. A tongue depressor should be inserted between the teeth in order to prevent tongue bite. She is kept in the lateral position to avoid aspiration. Vomitus and oral secretions should be removed by frequent suctioning. Oxygenation is maintained through face mask to prevent the respiratory acidosis. Oxygenation is monitored using a transcutaneous pulse oximetry. APG analysis is needed when oxygen saturation goes below 92%. And sodium bicarbonate is given when the pH is below 7. And the patient should have a doctor or at least a trained midwife for constant supervision next to her. A detailed history to be taken from the relatives about the diagnosis of eclampsia, the duration of pregnancy, the number of fits that she has during her pregnancy or during transportation, the nature of medication administered outside, and after the history has been collected, the patient is stabilized, a thorough, quick general or an abdominal vaginal examination should be made, and the self-retaining catheter is introduced and an urine is tested for protein. A half-hourly pulse monitoring, respiratory rate is recorded, hourly urine output should be noted. If the mother is undelivered, the uterus should be prepared at palpated at regular intervals to detect the progress of labor. The fetal heart rate is to be monitored. Immediately after the convulsions, fetal bradycardia or the less fetal heart rate is common. Specific management with the use of the anticonvulsants and the sedative therapy. The aim is to control the fits. So we need to aim at giving the anticonvulsants and the sedative therapy to prevent its recurrence. So magnesium sulfate is a drug of choice and it acts as a membrane stabilizer and a neuroprotector. It reduces the motor end plate sensitivity to acetylcholine and thereby it induces cerebral vasodilation, it dilates the uterine arteries, it inhibits platelet activation. It has no side effects on neonate within the therapeutic level. It has got an excellent result with maternal mortality of less than 3%. It doesn't control hypertension. Repeat injections are given only if knee jerk are present and respiratory rate is more than 12 minutes or urinary output exceeds 30 ml per hour, so which indicates that the drug is not overdosed. The therapeutic level has to be keep on checking about the level of magnesium when the mother is receiving magnesium sulfate regimen. 4 to 7 milliequivalent per liter should be maintained. So for recurrence of it, 2 grams of IV bolus is given over 5 minutes for the mothers with eclampsia. So the antihypertensive and diuretics use is that in spite of anticonvulsant sedative regimes, we also have to administer antihypertensives and diuretics, especially if the client has BP consistently more than 160 per 110 milligrams of Hg. So drugs commonly used here are the hydralazine, labetalol, calcium channel blockers, nitroglycerine, presence of pulmonary edema, which requires diuretics in such cases. Furosemide should be administered in doses of 20 to 40 milligrams IV and repeated intervals. And management during fits. In case of a premonitory stage, a mouth gag is placed in between the teeth to prevent the tongue bite and remove after clonic stage or phase is over. The air passage is to be clear of the mucus with mucus sucker and the patient's head is to be turned on to one side. Raising the food end of the bed facilitates postural drainage of the upper respiratory tract and oxygen is given until the cyanosis disappears in the mother. So what is status eclampticus is continuous episodes of the convulsions are noted. In such cases, thiopentine sodium 0.5 grams is dissolved in 20 ml of 5% dextrose is given IV very slowly. In unresponsive cases, cesarean section in ideal surroundings may be a life-saving attempt. Now, how should we treat a complication? Prophylactic uses of antibiotics have to be reduced. Reduces the complications like pulmonary and puerperal infection. For pulmonary edema or acute respiratory distress syndrome, furosemide 40 milligrams IV followed by 20 grams of mannitol IV should be given. A pulse oximeter is very useful in such kind of patients to keep them in continuous monitoring. Aspiration of mucus from tracheobronchial tree by suction apparatus is done. For heart failures, oxygen inhalation, parenteral elastics and digitals are used. For anuria, the dopamine infusion is given, and for hyperpyrexia, cold sponging and antipyretics are given. And for psychosis, chlorpromazine or trifluoroperazine is quite effective in giving for the client to treat the complications. When does the mother requires an intensive care monitoring? The patient with multiple medical problems need to be admitted in an intensive care unit where she is looked after by a team consisting of an obstetrician, a physician, an expert anesthetist. A cardiac, renal and pulmonary complications are managed effectively. Use of blood gas analyzer to detect hypoxia and acidosis. Pulse oximetry and central venous pressure monitor should be done depending on the individual case or as per the requirement. A deeply unconscious patient with raised intracranial pressure, they need steroids and diuretic therapy. CT scan and MRI may be needed for the diagnosis and confirmation. So how do you do an obstetrical management? During pregnancy, majority of cases with antepartum eclampsia, labor starts soon after the convulsions. But when the labor fails to start, the management depends on whether the fits is controlled or not, and also depends on the maturity of the fetus. If the fits are controlled, there may be three conditions, like if the baby is mature, the baby is premature, or baby is dead. If the baby is mature, delivery should be done. If the cervix is favorable and there is no contraindication for vaginal delivery, we can induce a labor by a surgical induction by low rupture of membranes. When a cervix is unfavorable, cervical ripening with PGE2, prostaglandin E2 gel is given, is achieved before doing an artificial rupture of membrane. If cervix is unfavorable or there is an obstetrical contraindication for vaginal delivery, then cesarean section is done for those mothers. If the baby is premature, imagine if it is less than 37 weeks, delivery is always recommended in a setup of an ICU. The underlying disease process of preeclampsia and eclampsia will persist until the woman delivers. So the disease process may flare up at any point of time, and there may be a risk of convulsions and intrauterine fetal death. So steroid therapy is given when pregnancy is less than 34 weeks for bringing out the lung maturity in the babies. Conservative management at early pregnancy may improve the perinatal outcome, but that must be given carefully balanced with the maternal well-being. If the baby is dead, the pre-eclamptic process gradually will subside as soon as the baby is dead, and eventually the expulsion of the baby will occur. Otherwise, a medical method for induction is started to expel the dead fetus. If the fits are not controlled, with anticonvulsants within a reasonable period for 6 to 8 hours, termination of pregnancy should be done. And during labor, in absence of any contraindication to vaginal delivery, as soon as labor is established, low rupture of membrane is done to accelerate the labor. So now we'll just get into the drug called magnesium sulfate. So this is a magnesium sulfate which is used in the following conditions of eclampsia: severe preeclampsia, where the BP is more than 160/110 with proteinuria of 3 plus and 4 plus, and especially given with clients or who suffers with preeclampsia and with the symptoms like headache or blurring of vision, epigastric pain, oliguria, and abnormal edema over face, hands, and abdomen and vulva. So management of a severe preeclampsia or an eclampsia lies on the role of antihypertensives, the role of magnesium sulfate, which takes up a very important role, the nursing care, and if it is all not controlled to safeguard the mother, we need to go for a termination of pregnancy. The role of antihypertensives like alpha-methyl dopa or a tablet labetalol can be used to control the BP if the diastolic pressure is more than 100 mm of Hg as per the Government of India protocol. Target should be is that the diastolic blood pressure should be maintained between 92 mm of Hg. So in case of severe preeclampsia, the drug nifedipine or injection labetalol is recommended for the initial control of BP. In case if the mother have to go for a choice of magnesium sulfate, the first dose at the non-referral unit level, total 10 grams should be given. So 5 grams, 10 ml magnesium sulfate deep, IM should be given in each buttock, and patient should reach the first referral unit in 2 hours for the further management. Then at the first referral unit, the loading dose is about 14 grams, where 4 grams, that is 8 ml of magnesium sulfate, is diluted within 12 hours with 12 ml of normal saline or distilled water in 20 ml syringe, that is about 20%, and is given slow intravenous in 5 to 10 minutes. 5 grams, that is about 10 ml magnesium sulfate, is then given with 1 ml 2% lignocaine deep IM in each buttock. 5 grams, that is about 10 ml of magnesium sulfate with 1 ml 2% lignocaine deep in IM in alternating buttocks is given every 4 hours as a part of maintenance dose after the initial administration of magnesium sulfate at the first referral unit, and it should be given for 24 hours after the last convulsions or delivery, whichever occurs later. So when you administer magnesium sulfate, you have to watch for the signs before every maintenance dose, like urine output should not be less than 25 to 30 ml per hour. The deep tendon reflex is absent. Check whether it is absent. Respiratory rate is less than 16 minutes per minute. So if it is all more, urine output is more, and deep tendon reflex is present, and the patient suffers with respiratory rate, so all these tells the sign of a toxicity. So in order to prevent the toxicity, we give injection calcium gluconate as an antidote. A 10 ml mixed in 10% in 10 minutes slow IV for respiratory toxicity should be administered. So as per the Government of India guidelines, magnesium sulfate is a safe drug to use So it recommends use of magnesium sulfate by nurses in severe preeclampsia and eclampsia as a first dose. It is considered to be a safe drug, having usually can be administered with monitoring. It can be administered even in case where any sign of toxicity is seen. Generally, withholding the next dose is more than enough to make the mother prevent from getting serious complications. So antidote is only required if the patient suffers with the respiratory toxicity. And a close monitoring is equally important when the clients receive a magnesium sulfate therapy. So give antidote injection calcium gluconate 10 ml 10% in 10 minutes slow IV for respiratory toxicity. So when is the nursing care required? So in the gestational diabetes mellitus, if the woman is present in labor, then the mother require nursing care. So admit and treat as per the progress. If the mother is not presented, then you can send the mother, ask her to come and follow up for OPD once a week. In case of preeclampsia, if the mother is presenting in labor, nursing care is required with an admission. And if the mother is not presenting in labor, follow-up can be done in OPD twice a week. In case of severe preeclampsia, presenting in labor, nursing care is required. Admit her and give her magnesium sulfate and do needful so that the client doesn't proceed to eclampsia. Presenting without labor, admit and give magnesium sulfate and do the needful. In case of eclampsia, presenting with labor and without presenting in labor, nursing care is essential in these two cases where you have to admit the mother, stabilize the convulsions, position in left lateral position, mouth gag, do suctioning, clear the secretion, start oxygen, catheterize, give magnesium sulfate and terminate pregnancy within 12 hours. In case in order to terminate the pregnancy, if she is already in labor and let her progress in labor, so in gestational diabetes, less than 33 weeks, the nursing care, the termination is not required in all these cases. If it is more than 37 weeks, the gestational termination is considered. In case of preeclampsia, it is not considered in all these cases where if the pregnancy is more than 37 weeks, it can be considered. In severe preeclampsia, if the mother is even less than 23 weeks, it is considered, and until if the mother goes for 37 weeks, it can be terminated. If the mothers are unstable, give antenatal corticosteroids and terminate within 24 hours if the mother is between 24 to 34 weeks of gestation. If the mother is unstable, do not give antenatal corticosteroids. We need to terminate the pregnancy within 24 hours if the mother is between 35 to 36 weeks. So in case, it depends on the stability status of the mother. So in eclampsia, even if the mother is less than 23 weeks, she has to be terminated immediately to safeguard the mother's condition at any weeks it comes. So calcium supplementation. What is the role of calcium supplementation? So WHO recommends calcium supplementation for the prevention of preeclampsia and eclampsia in populations whose diets are deficient in calcium. So the government of India recommends about every woman should receive a supplementation of 6 months during antenatal period after the first trimester and for 6 months during lactation. 2 calcium tablets would be given daily. Each tablet contains 500 milligrams of elemental calcium and 250 international units of vitamin D3. It should be implemented at all levels of contact of the pregnant mother with the health system. So now what is the key message that we need to carry out in this presentation is preeclampsia and eclampsia is a major killer deaths from which it can be prevented with proper antenatal care and with the proper timely administration of magnesium sulfate. A proper nursing care and timely injection of the magnesium sulfate administration is key in management of eclamptic cases. So magnesium sulfate is considered to be a safe drug for mother and can be given without any hesitation. Toxicity of magnesium sulfate is very rare. At subcenter, A&M can safely give first dose of magnesium sulfate 5 milligrams in each buttock and refer to a higher facility for further management. So these are the references that I have used, and thank you all for your patient listening.